Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Tonight begins a strange observance in the Jewish calendar. Does everyone know that tonight is Lag BaOmer, tonight and tomorrow? Lag BaOmer is a lot of fun. If you go to Earl Bales Park, I think, they're having a huge Lag BaOmer party. We're doing an event here at Beth Tikvah if you've signed up. If you really want to understand the spirit of Lag BaOmer, you go to Israel and see how they celebrate Lag BaOmer there. You'll really get a sense of Lag BaOmer's spirit. There are bonfires and bows and arrows, a day off school, barbecues, and huge happy gatherings. And when you ask people, so what is Lag BaOmer and why do we celebrate it? Most of the time, they're not really clear, and they don't have a good answer. They know it's fun, but they're not sure why we celebrate it. So actually, there are a few different explanations for what Lag BaOmer is. You know what it means, right? There are 50 days between Pesach and Shavuot. This is called the Omer period. Now we're in the Omer period, and Lag is 33. In Hebrew, all of the letters can translate into numbers. So Lag is 33 days of the Omer. That begins tonight. The Talmud explains that the Omer period was not such a happy period. This is what the Talmud says about the Omer. Shnei Masar Elev Zugim, 12,000 pairs of students. Hayu lo Rabbi Akiva were the students of Rabbi Akiva. He had 24,000 students, 12,000 pairs, because you study one with your partner. Everyone's matched up. V'kulam meitu beperek echad. They all died during the Omer period in one giant plague. Mipnei shelo nahagu kavod ze lazeh, because they did not treat each other with proper kavod, with proper honor. V'haya ha'olam shamem, and this was like the world becoming desolate. You could imagine all of these people dying, all of these young students in the greatest of yeshivas, Rabbi Akiva's yeshiva. They all die at once. It's like the world came to an end. Ad sheba Rabbi Akiva etzel Rabotenu shebadarom, until Rabbi Akiva picked himself up again, went to the south, and shena'a lahem, and started teaching again to them. This is why during the Omer period, some Jews have the obligation to mourn. They take it upon themselves not to shave, they don't listen to music, you've heard of this before, and they treat the Omer period as a period of mourning. There is a tradition that pops up about 1,500 years ago that says that the plague ceased on Lag BaOmer. And that's the source of the joy of the holiday. Why are we happy? Because this terrible plague happened, and on Lag BaOmer, the tragedy ceased. This is one explanation, not the only one for Lag BaOmer, but it's one I want to speak about today because there is, I think, an important lesson here in this story. A lesson about how communities are supposed to get along with each other and what terrible consequences can happen if they don't. Yes, this was a plague, but the Talmud explains that the plague befell the students of Rabbi Akiva for a reason. I'll say it again. Mipnei shelo nahagu kavod ze lazeh, because they did not show honor one to another. What is kavod? What is honor? And why is it so important? Why does it lead to a plague? These aren't just important questions because they relate to a story a long time ago. This is an important question to ask. What is honor? Because all of us are obligated to honor. The most famous commandment to honor is in the Ten Commandments. Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha leman yarichun yamecha. Honor your mother and your father so that your days may be long. The Torah does not explain in the Ten Commandments how you're supposed to honor them, but it stresses the importance of this commandment by saying that if you don't, the very land that you dwell upon will be taken from you. But the obligation for all of us to honor, it goes further than mother and father. The book of Proverbs obligates us to honor God. Kaved et Hashem mehonecha umereshit kol tfuatcha. Honor the Lord with all of your possessions and the first fruits of your increase. God is also entitled to honor. On this verse, Rashi, the great interpreter, says, don't read the verb mehonecha, honor God with your possessions. God doesn't need possessions. Rashi says, read that verse, gronecha. Gronecha is your throat. Honor God with your throat. What does that mean? Make sure you show gratitude for what you have. Make sure you say your prayers appropriately. God wants appreciation through our voices. Okay, so we have our parents that deserve honor. We have God that deserves honor. We're going to go even further now. Pirkei Avot. We're supposed to learn Pirkei Avot this time of year. Rabbi Eliezer ben Shamua taught this. Yehi chavod talmidcha chaviv alecha keshelcha. Let the honor of your student be as important as your own honor. Uchvod chavercha kemora rabecha. And your friend, make sure you honor your friends. It should be as important to you as the honor you show to your teacher. Umora rabcha kemora shamayim. And you honor your teachers. There's some kids here now. Be nice to your teachers. Honor your teachers like you honor heaven. Should be on the same level as the honor you show to God. So we have our parents who deserve honor. We have God who deserves honor. We have our friends who deserve honor. We have our students that deserve honor. We have our teachers who deserve honor. This is all summarized, I think, very well in the 4th chapter of Pirkei Avot, where it says, and every Jew should know this teaching, Ezehu mechubad. Who is the honored one? Hamechabed et habriot. The one who shows honor to all. So you see the concentric circles that we have built. Honor for our parents, our friends, our teachers, God, students. Everyone deserves honor. This is a very important principle in Judaism. And I would offer to you that it explains how honor is different than respect. How so? Some people don't understand that honor is different than respect. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, the great former chief rabbi of blessed memory, he writes this in The Home We Build Together, a book he wrote on how different people are supposed to share the same planet. Quote, we honor people's freedom to choose, even if we may regard their choices as reprehensible and wrong. Respect is earned. That is what makes it respect. In other words, in Judaism, you do not have to respect others. Isn't that interesting? There is no mitzvah to respect. You have permission not to respect a person's behavior. You have permission not to respect a person's ideals or beliefs. if you feel they are wrong. But honor is not earned. Honor is granted. You do not have a choice not to honor somebody. Honor is a posture of the heart. It is the humility of saying that I am going to be kind and compassionate and value you, not because of who you are, but because of who I am. And I believe that every person, even if I don't like what they're doing and who they are, deserves a degree of recognition. Even if they're not yet acting in an honorable way, I will show them honor, because God commands us to show honor for all creation. Honor is based on who you are, not what other people do. It's how we dispose ourselves to the things that matter and how we show others that they matter to us. We honor our children by spending time with them. We honor our marriages by focusing on each other. We honor our bodies by treating them as gifts from God. We honor our parents by checking in on them often. We honor others by being kind to them, even though they may be different than us. All of that behavior, kavod, honor, is what was missing from Rabbi Akiva's study hall. It's actually not hard to imagine. I've actually been to these types of study halls and synagogues before. Places that are filled with very bright people and knowledgeable people and people who are focusing on their studies and their prayers and their issues, but nobody notices a stranger who walks through the door. Nobody says hello. Nobody takes the time to get to know somebody who might be different than they are and perhaps expand their circle of concern. You see, this story about all the students of Rabbi Akiva dying at one time, 24,000, it's hard to believe. And you look at it and say, it's just some story. But I would propose to you that maybe the lesson behind this story is that if those students had not died in a plague, that Beit Midrash, that house of study, would have self-destructed anyway. Because there's something very interesting about honoring others. You might notice that when you start to ascribe honor to somebody, and you treat them as if they're special and weighty and precious, and you build them up, and you believe the best, and you encourage them, they often just start behaving honorably. And on the other hand, when you assume the worst about others, and you ignore them, or tear them down, or tell them over and over again what they're not, and you belittle them, and you criticize them, and you take them out at the knees, it's amazing, sometimes they even get more dishonorable than they were to begin with. Honor builds up. Dishonor tears down. After this terrible tragedy, Rabbi Akiva picks up his belongings. That's what the Talmud says. He headed south, and he taught the sages there. The Talmud does not say what he taught them, but what do you think? What do you think was the first lesson Rabbi Akiva taught in his new house of study, version 2.0? I would propose that before he opened up the Torah, before he taught anything else, he paid tribute to all of his students who had died and explained to his new students what happened to them and why it happened to them. And he taught his new students how to honor each other. He worked to heal this disease to descend to the roots of the issue and rebuild the edifice that had been lost. That's what happened on Lag BaOmer. As important as these lessons were for him, I think it's crucially important that we remind ourselves of these lessons in our time as well. Why? Because it's important for us as Jews. Yes, Lag BaOmer begins tonight, but Shavuot is not all that far away. Shavuot is the holiday where our ancestors received the Torah at Sinai. The sages say when they received the Torah, they all stood, quote, as one person with one heart. Ke'ish echad, belev echad. This does not mean that everybody agreed with each other on every issue of personal, social, or national concern. Obviously, with thousands of people, you had differences of opinion, but differences were expressed with appropriate humility, with the readiness to hear a different opinion, with permission to allow others to speak. Only when they reached that level of honor for one another, kavod, were they ready to receive the Torah. In every house of study, in every synagogue, and I would add, within the state of Israel, Jews have to aspire to correct the problems that existed in Rabbi Akiva's Beit Midrash and learn that honor is not a choice in Judaism. It is an obligation that we give to others because of who we are and what we believe. And second, I think that this is a crucial lesson for us as Canadians as well. I fear, almost on a daily basis, that this country is falling increasingly apart because our universities, the institutions where we are training our youngsters to become good citizens, are turning into Rabbi Akiva's house of study. On our campuses, students at best ignore their opponents, but at worst, they show hatred and rage against them. We are seeing across our campuses students siloing themselves into camps, stopped trying to communicate with those who see things differently. I want to share with you something that our friend Ron Daniels wrote. I say he's our friend because he grew up in our shul, and he is now the president of Johns Hopkins University. He addressed this phenomenon in an email that he wrote to his student body, criticizing the notorious encampments taking place on the campus lawn. What he wrote was so brilliant. Quote, "By physically demarcating a space and by gathering, studying, and chanting with only those people who subscribe to a similar worldview on an incredibly complex subject, you fail to honor the university's foundational imperative for conversation across difference, for conversation that aims to test, evaluate, and understand competing claims. An encampment of this nature cannot help but reduce the capacity of those within it to see the common humanity of those who are outside its perimeter. Instead of recognizing and drawing strength from our diversity, we veer to a community of rigid solitudes, a community defined by suspicion, distrust, and in the extreme, hatred. Along the way, our common humanity is lost." End quote. Isn't that brilliant? Here's the president of Johns Hopkins University teaching us about Lag BaOmer. Though the context is his university, I think we all recognize that the truth of this message applies universally. Honor builds up. Dishonor tears down. It threatens the heart of society's ability to progress. Personally, for the Jewish community, on campus, and in our country, life without honor is truly a plague. Let us therefore pay tribute to this fundamental value so desperately needed in these divisive times. Let us look for opportunities to actively honor others, not because of anything they did, but because of who we are. And let us hope that the honor we show to others brings proper honor to the one whose kvodo malei olam, whose honor fills the whole world. Shabbat Shalom.